Welcome learners to Trunk, Plank, and Spar, which corresponds to pages 119 to 123 of Techniques in Civilization by Lewis Mumford. As the title suggests, this mini lecture will focus on the main idea that wood was the universal material of the Eotechnic phase. Speaking of the title, in case you were wondering, a spar is a stout pole such as those used for masts on a ship. And wood was the universal material of the Eotechnic phase. I'm going to give 4 supporting reasons for this. One, it was the foundation of all building. Obviously, there were actual buildings made of wood, but even as we think of the great stone cathedrals and stone castles and large buildings, wood was a very integral even in the masonry process as it is today. In setting concrete and building forms and things like that. So, and even actually then to use the machines, the cranes, the primitive cranes and things like that were used to bring large stones into place were all made of wood. Which brings us to the second thing, that common tools and utensils were made of wood. With the exception of tools that needed a cutting edge, which would have been made with stone and then later metal, sharpened metal, the tools were made of wood and the utensils. The third area is that principal machines of the industry were made of wood. So as I mentioned before, a crane would have been made of wood. And actually, you know, the fact that these principal machines of industry were made of wood is important because really wood provided the finger exercises, as Mumford put it, of the new industrialism. And even if you have ever heard the stories of Harrison, who developed the first reliable clock, the first reliable timepiece, he talked about different types of wood that he had to import to try to create, that he made the parts of, just because the machining process was not advanced enough. So wood was actually used to create cogs and gears and things like that we would never think of wood being used for today. And then finally, wood was key in mining and metal. And you know, one way that was the case was that in mines, support beams had to be set up in the mines. The ore, the coal, the metal had to be carried in something. The fact that the tools were made of wood was also important. Also in the metal, mining for metal, for ore, the forging and smelting process was important. Wood was very important as the fuel for those fires before the widespread use of coal. And so a lot of deforestation was actually the result of the use of wood in the forging and the smelting process. And then finally, another area where wood was very important was in the operation of ships and boats. And wood combined with wind and water formed the basis for the manufacture and the operation of boats and ships. This area of the Eotechnic complex held together longer than in this industry than any other. And finally, the ship was indirectly a factor in rationalizing production and standardizing goods. For the shipping industry, things, for instance, pieces of wood called biscuits that were used in building ships. Biscuits are one way to attach 2 pieces of wood. These factories were some of the first factories, some of the first mass-produced standardized goods that were available. And Mumford also mentions that some of the first mass-produced clothing industries were for clothes that were marketed to sailors who were just coming into port and needed a new set of clothes. So that kind of wraps up this short mini lecture on wood as the universal building material. There is an assignment in the Generating and Testing Hypotheses folder that will direct you to a threaded discussion board to reply to the post. As always, don't forget to complete the essay question corresponding with this section in the Learning Session 2 assessment. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for viewing this mini lecture and urge you to contact your instructor if you have any questions or problems.